What if the dinosaurs that went extinct 66 million years ago were able to survive the asteroid? Well, with a few evolutionary modifications, anything is possible. Today, we're going to modify the dinosaurs that went extinct, giving them all new traits in order to survive. Some might get big, some might be small, and some will even get extreme rock armor, capable of surviving the asteroid impact. This is What If, and here's what would happen if dinosaurs had evolved to survive the asteroid. Okay, first, let's revisit the mass extinction event that got us here in the first place, because clues to dinosaurs' survival lie at the scene of the crime. Why is that? Well, because we know some animals survived. While 75% of all species on Earth were wiped out, 25% found a way. What special superpower did each survivor have? Was it their bodies? Was it what they ate or how they lived? And keep in mind, it wasn't just the initial impact that did all the damage. There was a second extinction event right after. This killer asteroid starts as a small dot in the sky, but before you know it, a massive rock has struck Earth, creating a huge crater. The enormous force from the asteroid created a tremendous amount of heat. It was like billions of nuclear bombs exploding. The heat raised the temperature of the land, and it caused the rocks underneath the Earth to melt, tossing tiny molten particles into the air. These rained back down as hot, deadly shards. A massive impact, a super hot Earth, and molten rock rain. Well, that's the first killer. And then, for those that somehow survived this, there was a second horror on the way. The massive cloud of ash that enveloped the Earth blocked out the sun, causing an impact winter. This lasted anywhere from 2 to 10 years. No sunlight or food for many of the creatures on Earth. This would have been a nightmare to get through, but some animals did manage to survive. Shrews, turtles, crocodiles, and some other creatures were able to get through both of these extinction events. So, if we applied some of their survival traits to the dinosaurs, would the dinosaurs be able to avoid getting wiped out? Okay, it's time to do a little gene splicing. Let's take a look at our favorite dinosaurs and see how they might have evolved to survive the asteroid. From T-Rex to Tiny Rex. Okay, let's start with my favorite, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Weighing in at 7,000 kilograms, the T-Rex had a pretty difficult time surviving the asteroid. As terrestrial creatures, many T-Rexes would have died in the original heat pulse that radiated through Earth. Either that, or they would have been shredded by the rain of molten rock coming down from the sky. Well, not this time. We're going to help the T-Rex survive. We'll take some lessons from the Morgan eucodon, a small mammal that lived in burrows and scurried around underfoot during the age of dinosaurs. We'll give our T-Rex some really thick armor all over its body to combat the hail of shards. And those puny arms? Well, let's beef them up a bit by increasing their length and size, as well as giving them some bigger claws. This would allow them to dig burrows for extra protection. Will this be enough? Well, let's see what happens when the asteroid strikes again. Our modified T-Rex looks to be doing great. The heavy armor is protecting him from the shards, and he's running into his burrow for shelters. He's 12 meters long, so this burrow is a bit on the big side, but so far so good. Okay, now that the initial impact is over, a heat wave is happening. Widespread fires are raging across Earth. Our T-Rex, though, is still comfortable, hiding in his burrow, waiting for the fires to end. Now, although the T-Rex had a high energy requirement and had to eat relatively frequently, he should be able to survive a bit of starvation for now. I mean, a hungry stomach beats going extinct, right? After the initial devastation subsides, our T-Rex emerges from his burrow, only to find that Earth is now 6 degrees colder and much darker. This means finding food is going to be a huge issue. At first, our T-Rex could scavenge some asteroid kill, but with most other large land creatures now gone, how would this enormous carnivore survive? Well, it's going to be virtually impossible without food. That is, unless we give our T-Rex one more modification. Unfortunately, it'll change almost everything we know about this dominant dino. Let me explain. Almost every creature that survived the impact winter had this one common feature. They were on the smaller side. In fact, of the mammals that survived, the largest one was no bigger than a rat. So, sorry Rexy, but we're gonna have to shrink you down from a size 16 to a size 0. Okay, now you're Tiny Rex. And oh, one more thing, we're also going to modify your diet drastically. You're going to be an insectivore. Since there are no large herbivores to eat, you'll have to settle for feeding off the swampy carcasses of insects. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. But at least he should survive. Let's see what happens when the asteroid strikes again. Okay, Tiny Rex runs into its burrow like before and stays there for a while. It's now safe to come out. For a while, he's able to sustain himself on the remains of dead animals. And after that, well, there are swarms of insects hovering over the decaying vegetation everywhere. That's what our Tiny Rex eats. And he survives long enough to pass his genes on to the next generation, giving rise to a new generation of armored, burrowing insectivores. Tiny Rexes. Honestly, they're pretty cute. Toothless Velociraptor. All right, let's look at another star of the Jurassic Age, Velociraptors. What would it take for them to survive? Well, these dinosaurs lived in Central and Eastern Asia during the late Cretaceous period. They were about 1.8 meters long and weighed about 45 kilograms, about as much as a chimpanzee. They were pretty good at pouncing quickly on their prey and liked eating small herbivores. There's one other feature that they had that's given us an idea to build on, and that's that velociraptors had fluffy, feathery arms. Now, you might be thinking, why didn't I see that in Jurassic Park? Well, when the movie was made, scientists hadn't yet figured out that dinosaurs had feathers. Now, velociraptors had one other feature just like birds. They had thin, hollow bones filled with air sacs, a powerful mechanism for staying well oxygenated. They could get oxygen both while inhaling and exhaling. Now, despite all this, unfortunately, they couldn't fly, which may have been a key factor in their downfall. All right, time for us to give our velociraptors a few key modifications that could help them avoid extinction. Now, similar to our T-Rex, we'll shrink them down. Then, we're going to give them wings so they can take flight when the asteroid strikes. This was one of the reasons birds survived. Some of them were able to fly away and avoid the initial blast. But just being able to fly won't be enough. These creatures will have to adapt and find food to survive the impact winter. What would they eat? Well, we'll have to give our velociraptors a taste for bird food. They could swoop down and prey on the small mammals scurrying about. Or they could search for seeds and nuts, which will still be around after the massive fires. Now, to pick those seeds out from dead forests, we'd better give them a beak, too, a key evolutionary advantage. And sorry, velociraptors, but we're getting rid of your teeth. In this new post-apocalyptic world, you're not going to need them. This will make sure you live to see another day. Yeah, this toothless velociraptor with its wings is definitely making it through the asteroid. Okay, so we've looked at the land and at the air. Well, now it's time to look at the sea. Michael Spinosaurus Phelps. The Spinosaurus was a large, semi-aquatic dinosaur with a massive sail on its back. It's kind of an odd-looking creature, 15.5 meters long with small hind legs, a predator who swam after fish. It wasn't really well adapted to land. In fact, this dinosaur was already extinct by the time the asteroid hit. But let's assume for a moment that it was around during the late Cretaceous period, because we think with a few modifications, we could help it survive the asteroid. And this time, we're going to look for some aspects of a creature that survived all 5 mass extinctions. The sharks, and you'll see why in a second. Unlike the shark, the sad thing about the Spinosaurus, well, it was a crappy swimmer. The fin on its back was seriously destabilizing. It made for a very difficult swim. Okay, so that 335 kilogram big back fin, it's gotta go. Or maybe become a much smaller dorsal fin. Let's streamline its body and shrink it a bit while we're at it, so it can glide, kind of like Michael Phelps. Now, another problem with the Spinosaurus? Well, we've got to swap out its whole breathing mechanism. Like the Velociraptor, it has lungs and a network of sacs inundating its hollow bones. We're going to replace this whole system with gills, and not your standard 5 gills, but a set of 7, so it can get enough oxygen whether it's in shallow water or the deepest ocean. Now finally, we'll give our Spinosaurus a swim bladder. It's a gas-filled sac which it can inflate or deflate whenever it likes. This way it can roam through different depths of the ocean. Well, one last trait before we go. The Spinosaurus was known for only eating a couple of things during its time. Well, our Spinosaurus, it can't be such a picky eater. Whether it's turtles or shellfish, sea snakes or smaller Spinosauruses, they're gonna eat whatever's served for dinner. Okay, our new and modified Michael Spinosaurus Phelps is all set. Built to survive the asteroid. It'll dive deep when the top layers overheat, it can swim near and far, and in the beginning it'll eat all the dead fish that sink to the bottom. Later it'll eat anything. We're good to go. The butt-breathing Ankylosaurus. Okay, time for our last bit of genetic splicing. Now, sharks survived, but turtles did too. Is there a dino that could learn a few evolutionary tricks from the turtle? Or the crocodile? Well, let's look at the Ankylosaurus, the armored dinosaur with bony plates on its body and a powerful club-like tail. These large beasts were herbivores, eating tough leaves, pulpy fruits, ferns, and shrubs. They were also super slow-moving creatures. But come to think of it, that might actually be a good thing, because being sluggish is part of the evolutionary success story of both the turtle and the crocodile. For the Ankylosaurus to survive the asteroid, we're going to need one major change. Instead of being strictly land dinos, we're going to need them to be semi-aquatic. Now, coincidentally, semi-aquatic was my favorite 90s band. Oh, wait, that was Semisonic. Okay, in the hours after the asteroid strikes, as the Earth becomes super hot, we need a few Ankylosauruses near the shore to slip into the water. Now, they don't need gills, but like a turtle, we'll make them good at holding their breath underwater for a long time, like 45 minutes. This will get them through the first phase, when Earth is scalding hot. Now, given that any kind of food is going to be a problem for a while after the impact, our Ankylosaurus already has the evolutionary trait that's going to help it survive. Yeah, its sluggishness is just what we need right now. Just like a turtle, the less energy it uses, the longer it can go without food. Now, in addition, let's make our Ankylosaurus cold-blooded, so its body temperature is determined by its environment. This way, as the Earth gets colder during the impact winter, the Ankylosaurus's temperature can drop too, and its metabolism can slow further. The less energy it needs, the better. Maybe it hangs out underwater for a bit, brumating. This is the type of hibernation turtles do. And this is where the last body feature comes in. We're going to modify our Ankylosaurus so it can breathe through its butt. Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous and sounds like maybe something Beavis and Butthead would say, but stick with me here. Turtles have cloaca, openings through which waste comes out. You know. they're rich in blood vessels, so they double up as a way to get oxygen when the turtle is underwater. Brumating. There you have it. A new generation of butt-breathing ankylosauruses, which are semi-aquatic. They're also sluggish, cold-blooded, and can retreat underwater to brumate. This is all happening as they're protected by their bony plates. Maybe they'll curl their tail under their armor for protection when they sleep. So, now that these dinosaurs managed to avoid extinction, what does the future of Earth and mammals look like? Well, what was formerly known as the T-Rex is now equivalent to a small reptile, one that feeds on insects to survive. Not scary. Our toothless velociraptors continued to evolve, along with birds, and in the ocean, Michael Spinosaurus Phelps could evolve into a powerful fish, competing with big sharks and whales. The new butt-breathing Anky, well, it doesn't scare anyone either. Think of it as a new kind of elephant-like creature, docile and relatively harmless. Hundreds of thousands of years later, the dinosaurs that survived, along with the mammals entering the scene, would continue to evolve side by side. By wiping out the larger creatures and shrinking the T-Rex, the mammals and dinosaurs of the time would be on a more even footing. But Tiny Rex lacks one important thing: a big brain. Aww. Other small mammals at the time, like rats and squirrels, would be significantly smarter than Tiny Rex. They'd also have better senses, ones that could allow them to get around in the dark better. So there is a possibility that the Tiny Rex would go extinct due to the stiff competition at the time. But let's assume they're able to still evolve. Similar to our own timeline, future generations of mammals would have evolved into intelligent apes. Tiny Rex might have become middleweight Rex by this point, like maybe elephant or hippo-sized. But there's a good chance that the smart apes would escape from middleweight Rex just by living high up in the trees. Then we'd get to humans, eventually giving rise to humans. Now, in the early years, humans would hide from heavyweight Rex, but over time we'd invent weapons and begin to hunt them. Now, would our re-engineered dinosaurs ever grow to be as large as they were in the Cretaceous period? Give them another 100 million years and they just might. Unless we humans make them all extinct. That all depends on what happens in the future. But that's a story for another What If.